and welcome to Reaching the Rest podcast, episode 20. This podcast was inspired by a desire to connect with global workers around the world who have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the Great Commission. My name is Amy Clausen, and I'm the missions director at Bethel's Rock Church in Minnesota. And today we have the privilege of sitting down with David Goldschmidt, missionary to Scotland. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here.
So can we just get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Julie and I, my wife, we've been married for 22 years, and we are serving as missionaries in Scotland. We've got two great daughters, Lila, who's 14, Tessa, who's 10. And so we have been on the mission field, again, for 20 years now, and we're church planters. We just opened up a BAM coffee house that reaches out to the community, and so that's what our life has been. And currently we are home itinerating, fundraising to get back to the field, hopefully by next June.
Yeah. So 20 years, that's quite a long time. And I would assume that you have had plenty of ups and downs and unexpected things. So can you just share with us, we love to hear all the stories. So can you just share with us some of your favorite stories that you love to tell people that kind of encapsulates just what life in ministry and on the missions field maybe has looked like, or just some of the incredible things that God has done over the past 20 years?
Absolutely. And as people get to know me, I am an open book. My wife says I share too much sometimes. And I think that's just part of me, because I think sometimes people have this idea of what missions is, but forgetting, and when we come to churches and you share and you see videos, and those are true.
Yeah.
But yet there's a lot of just life that happens, but in our lives. So I'll share a little bit of both. So one of my favorite stories to tell is almost when we first got to Edinburgh, the capital city, and we just had church offices, and we were looking for a facility. And so, but we're in the capital city, and we were brand new. To try to find a space is like, how does that, unless God does a miracle, we couldn't afford anything. And that's when Circle Maker came out. And so there was this one. It was an old workshop theater, is what it was called. So run by the Edinburgh Council, so local government. And I started just circling the block. I'm like, all right, Lord, this one space that we can see, let's just make this building one day ours. And I was sitting in my office one day, and a lady comes knocking in, and she says, hey, can I sit down with you? I said, yeah. She said, I heard through the grapevine, I don't even know how she heard, that you guys want to get this theater for your local church that you just started. We said, yeah. She said, listen, I know I'm a stranger, but do you think it's okay if I go to the neighbors in the neighborhood and get people to sign a petition that we can present to the government to say, hey, we want Bridge Family Church, that's the name of our church, to take on this building, because we don't want to see it turn into a restaurant, another a hotel or Airbnb. And I said, hey, that's great. And so she went around and she got about 350 neighbors to say, hey, we want to have this church take this building, because it's better to be a community space than something else. And so I thought that was awesome. It didn't work out, but then, I know, I wish I could say that it did, but the story gets better. Okay. But what happened is I run into Audrey, was her name. And I said, Audrey, like, that was so special. I said, do you think can you come to church? Like, I'd love to invite you to come out to one of our services. I just want to honor you in front of our small group of people. And she said, I've never been invited to church before. This is a lady, Scottish, 100%. And so she said, I'll come. So we came in, and I gave her flowers. I prayed with her in front of the congregation, and she was just blessed. And so that was how the service went. And in that service, we had a guy who was helping us, and he said, Pastor Dave, do you think it's okay if I ask people in our congregation to share testimonies? There were 8 people in the congregation. Like, it was like our third or fourth week. It was so fresh. And I knew people. People were quirky. People were odd. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, I don't want people to say something weird. What if there's a guest? And I want everything to be smooth. And I remember thinking, there's only 8 people here. What do I have to lose? And so we're kind of standing in silence, right? Like this awkward silence. And then out of nowhere, this lady who had only been to church twice, she kind of stands up and she gets the microphone, and she just begins sharing her story, how she had stomach cancer, ovarian cancer, and how she was given 3 months to live, and that it's been 3 years now, and she got to see 2 of her grandkids.
Wow.
And she said, man, she's like, I want to give glory to God. I don't know when my time's up, but I just want to say thank you to the Lord that I'm still here today. And so I preached, and I gave a salvation message, and Audrey raises her hand and she says, I want to commit my life to Jesus. And so our first salvation, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, she comes up to me and she says, hey, Pastor Dave, do you think it's okay if I come back next week? And I said, of course. Like, again, she doesn't know what church is like.
Right.
There was no reference. And I said, of course. She goes, I want to find out a little bit about Dorcas's story. This is the lady who shared her testimony. She said, because I was diagnosed with the same type of cancer in the same region.
Wow.
And if God can do the same for her, why can't God do the same for me? And so, like, of course, come back. And so Audrey came back, and we just loved her. And for the next 5 years, Audrey was part of our church. And we took her on training for kids ministry stuff. And they would be in another European nation just learning, and they would sing 10,000 Reasons. And she would say to our kids leaders at the time, she'd be like, guys, they're singing our song, because she didn't know Matt Redman wrote it. She just knew that we sang it at our church. And so it was just beautiful, and we loved her, and her friends and her family, they were a little bit resistant or hesitant. I don't know if they thought we were taking advantage of her or whatever the case might be. They didn't trust us a lot, but we tried to always love on them and love on her. And in 2017, she falls down, and she had a stroke, and she went to the hospital. And she loved to talk, but she was a speech therapist. But her last 3 months of life, she couldn't talk. Like the stroke that she had made her lose. So we would go visit her, and we have some great pictures of her. Our kids, we would eat ice lollies with her, and just just love on her. And I'll never forget. So it was a Monday. So Monday's my day off. And if I don't have Monday off, and especially I was a little bit more like, I need it off. Like, I'm gonna fall apart if I don't have it, and I observed the Sabbath, and so. But I said, all right, it's a busy week. It's a Monday. Let me go visit Audrey. So I went on a Monday morning, and I visited Audrey, and then somebody from the National Assembly's of God office said, hey, I'm going to be in Edinburgh, so can you meet me for dinner? And I'm like thinking, oh man, my day off now has become like 2 things that I hate doing, because I just need to rest in order to get through the week. And as I'm driving home, it's about 9:00 at night, and the Holy Spirit says to me, go visit Audrey again. So I made all the excuses you can think of. I was tired. I wanted to get home. I hate leaving my wife with the responsibility of putting our kids down to bed by herself all the time. So I wanted to be home to help her. And I said, all right, but I need to go. I couldn't. And so I called my wife real quick. I said, my phone's dying, but I'm headed back to the hospital, which, if you know me, it's just not I love making hospital visits, but again, I just didn't want to do it. But I said, no, Lord, I need to obey you. So I walk into the hospital room, and her best friend was there. And her best friend says to me, how did you know? And I said, no, what? She goes, the hospital called her brother, who lived 4 hours away. They called her and said, hey, send anybody that you can, because Audrey just has hours to live.
Wow.
And so I came in, and she's like, how did you know? And she said, did Dougie call you? And I said, nope. I said, I know it's going to sound crazy to you, but I was on my way home, and God said to me, stop by the office. And so, probably to people who don't believe in God or Jesus, probably sounded so weird, but to me, it was so real. So we were there, and you could tell time was it's just not. Time was coming to. We knew that she was just getting closer to not being here on earth anymore. And I held her hand. They left out of the room and said, "Hey, you can pray with her." And it was crazy, because I was praying with her, singing, and I was singing 10,000 Reasons, her favorite worship song. And as I held her hand, she breathed her last breath.
Wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, Lord, you brought us to Scotland, and how she's in heaven with you because of you bringing us to the city. So we didn't get the building that we wanted, but we got Audrey. There's another precious soul to find Jesus. And it's just, I tell that story, and it's just awesome, because sometimes you can forget, or you can be distracted, but when it really comes down to why we're doing what we do, missionaries like myself, my family, others around the world, we do it because we want to see people find hope in Jesus. So probably one of my favorite stories to tell, and we've got so many, thank God, but I love that, because a lady who's never been to church before God invited, and it was just a huge God Holy Spirit thing. And now she's passed away now for 8 years, but
Mm.
man, she's in heaven. She's dancing. Her
Yeah.
cancer's gone. No other
Amen.
issues, but we know that's where she's celebrating. We can't wait to see her again. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably one of my favorite
Wow.
stories to tell.
That's incredible. So tell us a little bit more. So at that time when she, came and gave her life to the Lord, you said there were 8 people in your church. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of, we heard a little bit more about what happened in her story, but what was happening at the same time in the church?
So I love being pastoral. I'm a pastor, but I am an evangelist at heart.
Mm.
I love to connect people who don't know Jesus, to a conversation, some kind of connection. So in that time, what we just did, we would go door to door and
Mm.
hand out flyers.
Yeah.
I would go to door and just ask people, "Hey, do you have a few minutes for me to ask you questions about God?" We fasted, we prayed,
Mm.
we tried to do outreaches. We
Yeah.
did pictures with Santa Claus in like local parks.
Yeah.
So we were trying anything where people
Mm.
who weren't interested about Jesus or who don't even know about Jesus.
Yeah.
I know like there's a lot of percentages that go around
Mm.
in some of these unreached people groups,
Mm.
but in Scotland it's 2%. So
Mm.
98% of the people that you'll encounter don't
Yeah.
know Jesus.
Mm.
So when I think about our city, I'm telling you, it's unreached people. People
Yeah.
see churches, but they're just museums and
Mm.
icons.
Yeah.
There's no connection to
Right.
Jesus in our context.
Yep.
So our church was just doing anything we can
Mm.
to connect with people.
Yep.
And so, again, going out on the university steps and inviting students as they came out to church. So
Mm.
anything you can think of, we were like, let's do it. And one
Yeah.
of our favorite outreaches to do was Thanksgiving, because they don't do
Mm.
Thanksgiving. And most British people will tell you, they're like, well, we see it on television, but it's not something we celebrate.
Yeah.
And so when we did it, it was like the hit. People loved coming to Thanksgiving. And at first it started with my wife making like 6 turkey,
Oh,
crowns, right? Like
wow.
we'd be baking them. And like if you've ever been to Great Britain, the ovens are tiny. You could fit 2
No.
in there. Like you couldn't even fit like an American sized turkey in one of them. And we would do that. And then it got bigger that we had to cater it. One year we had
Mm.
150 people show up. Like
Wow.
I think God multiplied food because even the caterer didn't have enough food for it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what we were just trying to do.
Mm.
Connect people to so
Mhm.
many things. We had missionaries that were with us and who were amazing. And they started a local children's choir as well.
Mm.
And we're like, hey, what can we do to not just build a reputation, but like, how do we let people know that church isn't scary, that this is a church that loves them. We want to be involved in the community, not just show up to our space, but we want to come to your space too.
Mhm.
And so those were the early days of Bridge Family Church. And,
Okay.
again, looking back at some photos, we're like, God, what did you like? How? And
Yeah.
it's because it's a miracle.
Mm.
There were a lot of tears. I'm watching people around me. Facebook. I love social media, but they talk about comparison, and comparison can kill.
Mhm.
But man, it can really take you down when you have somebody who starts a church 5 years after you, and they're like, "Hey, we just had 55 baptisms," and I'm like,
Mm.
"55?" I'm like, "I still got 10 people."
Yeah.
So you kind of like
Mhm.
you really have to find your security in what you're
Mhm.
called to do.
Yeah,
That was
that's
super
good.
important to us.
Yep.
And we just knew that God had called us to be in Edinburgh, and
Mm.
we were going to celebrate the victories. And again,
Yeah.
thank God in those moments, we had small victories. We had this girl,
Mm.
Katie, again, brand new to our church. She was in
Mm.
university, and we were a couple months old. And I said, "Hey, we want to do baptisms." And Julie's like, "Dave, why are you going to do that? Like, who's going to get
Yeah.
baptized?" And so Katie, she was a Christian from another church, but just from another city, but she just came to Edinburgh, so she wanted to come to university, come to our church because she knew Assemblies of God. So she says, "Hey, Pastor Dave, can I get baptized?" We're like, "That's awesome." So that same weekend that it was Baptism Sunday,
Yeah.
the Europe region leaders were in our city, so they were going to
Okay.
be at church with us.
Yeah.
And so she's Chinese, and so she invited
Okay.
everybody. She's like, "Hey, Pastor Dave, I invited everybody. I think 45 people are going to show up." I'm like, 45
Whoa.
people? Yeah, right. 45 people showed up to her baptism. So you have my
That's
leaders all in the room.
awesome.
They're like, "This is great." I'm like,
Yeah.
"This is not normal."
Right.
But it was exciting to see the
Yeah.
potential
Mhm.
and how quickly just one person
Mhm.
just inviting somebody or
Yeah.
family or giving even a baptism, how it can just change things around
Yeah.
just like that.
Yeah. Wow. So maybe you said this at one point. How long have you guys been in Scotland?
We've been in Scotland for 20 years,
Okay.
but we launched our church in 2012. So it was
Okay.
our second term.
Okay. Okay. Um, so can you kind of bring us through, bring us through the history of the Goldschmidts and um, starting way back to how any of this got started in the first place? What did the call look like? What did the journey to the field look like? And obviously, it sounds like you said the church that I think is that, and you're still with the Bridge Church currently.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
But that was your second term. So what was it that you were doing in your first term? So can you kind of just bring us through, like, what were these different seasons? What was the journey?
Absolutely. So typical church kid, wanted nothing to do with God until I was invited to go on a mission trip. So if you ever have the opportunity to go on a mission trip, go, because it'll change your life. And I tell people, I don't know how they let me on, because when I fill out the application, you have to say, are you following Jesus? Are you a committed Christian? And I answered yes to everything, but I was so backslidden. But I grew up Spanish Pentecostal, so my mom's Peruvian. So you just did anything the pastor said. So if he says go on a mission trip, you go.
You
like
just do it.
you honor and respect, you just do it. That's it. And so they approved my application. So, and a few months later, we raised all this money, and I'm flying to Peru, first time on a plane. And I'll never forget just praying the whole time, Lord, please don't let this plane crash, but please forgive my sins, because if something happens, I want to make sure I just slide into heaven. Because I believed in God. I just didn't want to surrender. And that's how my life was. 7 days in Peru changed my life forever. And I said, God, when I go back to America, I'm not playing any more games.
Wow.
I will do whatever it takes to follow him, to follow you. And I had prayed that prayer before, different encounters, but this time in my heart, I knew that I meant business. And when I came back, I changed. I tell people I changed the friends who I hung out with. I changed what I did in my free time. I changed how I spent my finances. And those like the three big F's in my life that I just changed. Like I just changed those a lot. And quickly started serving in church. God got me out of $30,000 in debt within 2 years, because I just gave. I was 20 years old, so much debt. And friends, my friends were my life, but they were not bad kids, but they just didn't follow Jesus. And so I came back, I changed those, and I just started serving. I just was such a high capacity volunteer with no strings attached. I was just like, I want to see high schoolers, kids in my youth group now serve Jesus, and I serve my youth pastor. My wife and I, we went to the same church, but not interested in each other until I started serving Jesus. And then, story changed. It was great. And then my youth pastor left, and they said, hey, Dave, we have nobody even to consider. Do you want to step in and do this as a volunteer youth pastor? And I was like, let's do it. And I was just saved for 2 years. I was managing a McDonald's for 45 hours a week. And now I'm running a youth group of about 45, 55 kids, something like that. And in the 9 months that we volunteered, we probably grew to like 75 kids. We gave $30,000 to Speed the Light. And still managing a job. I got, my wife and I were dating. And then I said to my boss, I said, listen, I'm not looking for this job, but it's just getting a lot for myself. I think you need to hire somebody. And I'd love to help out, still, but I just want to see it continue. I'm not looking for the job. He said, Dave, we've been talking about this in board meetings for the last 6-9 months. He's like, you have no credentials. And that's the thing that's stopping you. He said, if I take a risk on you, you have 6 months to get certified through Global, right through Berean. And he's like, because your fruit's there, we just need you to have a little bit more Bible knowledge. I said, great. So in 6 months, I got certified. And then I became the youth pastor and got engaged to my wife. And so we served in youth ministry for 3 years in New Jersey. And it was just awesome. I think every year that we were there, we gave 30,000 plus to Speed the Light, and the youth group grew to one of the last services. We were over 100 kids, and the congregation was only about 150, maybe. So we were like, So every kid. My wife was a teacher at the middle school next door. At some point, every single kid from 6th, 7th, or 8th grade came out to some event, youth group service. And it was just like glory days. Like sometimes I want to go back to those easy days. I don't have to be in charge of everything. It was just awesome. And kids getting baptized in the Holy Spirit, like parents would send their kids to like our winter retreats. And, it was just really awesome to see to see people just connecting with God. All that to say, we were getting into our third full-time year as youth pastors, and my wife and I were then again on a mission trip with a bunch of youth leaders, and the Lord spoke to us. He said, it's time for you guys to go. At that time, we didn't know where, we didn't know anything, but in our hearts it was like, and it was kind of sad because we knew going to this third year, I had 20 adult volunteer youth leaders. I had like 15, student leaders. Like I felt like our budget for what we were doing in a small church was the highest budget like for in any other ministry that was happening. And I'm like, God, like I can't believe that you're taking us out now.
Yep.
And so we applied to become missionaries, and we thought, man, we were young. I was 24, I think, maybe 23.
Yeah.
And we said, well, maybe they'll say, hey, go back and get a little bit more experience. That's what we were expecting. And then we had the interview, and it felt so weird. No matter what question they asked, it felt like I couldn't answer it right. They're like, what if this isn't? I'm like, I don't know. It was always wrong. And we're like, that was a terrible interview. And then we said, hey, when are you going to let us know? They're like, well, you're going to sit in the lobby in 10 minutes. We'll let you know. I'm like,
wow.
Well, so we're sitting in the lobby. And they're like, hey, we know that there's a call in your life, and the New Jersey network said, hey, we want to prove you guys to be missionaries. And we're like, and it was kind of surreal, sad, because our parents, we grew up in that church, our families were there. But at the same time, like exciting. We're like, we knew missions was going to be a part of our lives. We just didn't expect it to be then. Anyway, you go to Missouri, and they're like, hey, now, where do you want to pick? And we put down Mexico because that was where the mission trip where God called us to. But they said, hey, you can't do Mexico because of your wife's asthma. You guys will be home in a year. Yeah. So they said, because it's the pollution is so high. And so we were like, all right, so Latin America is not really hitting us. And then we sat down years ago, a missionary to Ireland came, and he shared about his calling there. And while we were there, we as we were filling out the application, we just said, all right, we don't want to be set in one country or one continent. And I filled out and I put down Europe just as before we sent it out. And then we sat down with the Europe leaders, and they said, hey, we know Ireland, but would you consider Scotland? It's a new country. We only have a couple missionaries there right now. And they're like, we think it'll be a really good fit. I'm not really academic wise, and I looked over at my wife, like, where's Scotland? I had no idea. I think my reference was like the Loch Ness Monster and the guy from The Simpsons. Like, I just didn't know. And now here I am 20 years later, right? And then they say, all right, go and pray about it. I said, well, how long? They said, you have 2 days. And I'm thinking, my gosh, we had 48 hours to decide where we're going to spend the next. And it's not forever, but where's the next season of ministry? We went back and forth, and my wife and I, we were like, you know what? We're from the Northeast. Let's choose some place that's hard. I said, we're not wimps. So let's go, let's do it. And so we went, and they speak English. And so we went to the leadership. We said, man, we're just really, there wasn't like this aha moment. It was just a couple things. And there was a devotional that we read years ago that says, sometimes as believers, we're just held captive by like waiting for that God moment, waiting for that big yes. And he's like, listen, we have the Holy Spirit inside of us. You just take steps forward, because sometimes the yes is harder to hear, but you'll know when it's a no. And I remember thinking like, all right, like let's choose Scotland, and I trust our leadership. And if they tell me no, then close that door. But as every step that we took, it was like another door opened. The first guy said, yeah, we sound great. Our district official, like, so every door just opened for us to be able to make it to Scotland. And then we got to Scotland and fundraised then for the next year and a half. And God was just faithful to helping us raise all the funds. And then we got to Scotland in June of 2027. So we were babies. I was at mid-20s, like that's it. And I remember everything smelled different, and everything was like, when we first got there, the dollar was worth 44 cents, I think. So the exchange rate was terrible. Like, and I remember thinking, we're going to have to go home quickly because there's no way that we're going to be able to afford to live here. It was just so expensive. And then we worked with another missionary at the time. He was like our mentor, and he said, hey, our church needs a young adults ministry. So why don't you do that? And so we started something from scratch, and
Yeah.
that was exciting, and it grew. So that's what we did our first 3 years,
Okay.
was we worked with this church, started, it was a vibrant, again, youth ministry, a
Mm.
young adults ministry, excuse me. And we loved it. It wasn't easy, but
Yeah.
it was fantastic. Made some
Yeah.
great lifelong friends. Yeah, those first couple of years there.
Wow. That's awesome. So tell me, at some points, you must have had your kids while you're on the fields. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is that like? I'm assuming, I don't know, back before any of this happened, you didn't picture your life in a way where you were having kids and raising kids in a completely different culture and context and away from family. So tell me what that's been like.
So we knew we wanted to have a family, but we said, all right, let's wait. And not that you can plan it perfectly, but we said, hey, let's wait maybe till our first term
Sure.
is over. So when we came back after those first 3 years in Scotland, so we're back in 2010, we said, all right, let's see if God, and then right away, literally our first month back, my wife gets pregnant. So we were itinerating, for anybody who's been pregnant or you're walking with a wife, like she was so sick, like going to different services, like
Yeah.
it was like, and we are a team. And
Yeah.
so she's like, I'm there, I'm going to be at every church. But it was a hard, like 8-9 months
Yeah.
for her to kind of be traveling, but we did it because we love to be together. And, yeah, that's just how we did things. And so we had our first daughter in March of 2011.
Okay.
And still at that time we knew we were going to moving to Edinburgh, but now we
Yeah.
have this like life, and
Right.
going back to the field with a baby was probably a little bit harder than just ourselves, because we knew we were taking her away from grandparents.
Yeah.
And we knew that it was, like they don't sell the same formulas.
Yeah.
And so that was like, so we had to, and then it goes expire. So anytime somebody came to visit us, we said, hey, look like a mule that's smuggling something over, because we need you to bring this formula over with us, because you didn't want to change, and it's just different. It was scary. Where do you live when you move into a new city? So that was an adjustment. And I look back, and I think we never put like a lot of limitations, or we never thought to ourselves, oh, like why us, right? Like I think we've done it in the last few years more than we've had, but I think those early years we were just like so naive. We're like, in a good way, we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
trusted God was going to take care of everything. Like all right, we're going to miss our family, but that's okay, because we know that we're called to do this.
Yep.
Our family, they're Christians, and they're like, hey, we miss you guys, but we know that's what you're called to do. My mom, she calls me the golden child. I'm not the youngest, but I'm the, I'm a pastor, and I'm her baby boy. My sister's younger than me, but she's like, but I know this is what I raised you guys for, to be in ministry.
Yeah.
Not easy,
Wow.
but we knew that's what we were supposed to do. And then, so now we're trying to plant the church with a 6-month-old. She was 6 months old when we moved to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And again, we're trying to navigate what parks and like, how do you do life now with a baby in a brand new city? Now we had no friends. So any of the friends that we had our first term,
Right.
we had zero connections. Or meaningful connections now in Edinburgh, and they have a baby. But again, just because we don't know how something's going to work, it doesn't stop us. We just push through, and we just persevere. And so that's what we did. We're like, all right, what do we do?
Yeah.
We just joined baby groups, right, with
There
our
you go.
baby. And until our church started, I said, Lord, give me opportunities. And again, I was there for my wife, and we said, hey, I'm going to be the best dad that I can be, like for my baby. Right. So, all right, we're not starting a church yet, but let's invest right now in our kids and in my family. And so we had our first daughter, and so we were just moving along. And so, but moving kids across, my former boss, he would say it all the time. He's like, as missionaries, young families, he said, just always remember this. Your kids are not a cargo, they're your compass. Because, it's not like, hey, you're along with me, but I'm going to do anything I do, but in light of my life and my family. Like, they're not going to be I got 2 daughters. I love them. And they're not like second fiddle to what we do. They're like, hey, how are we going to incorporate this together?
Absolutely.
God called us, And when you're 18, you can figure out what's going to happen in your life. But until then, hey, we're a family. We're
Yeah.
going to stick together as much as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
as I got older, it's, I travel a lot now without them
Mm-hmm.
because they're in school. It
Yeah.
was when they were younger, it was easier. But yeah, we just do things together as a family. So
Yeah.
and they love it. They don't have accents, which I wish they did, because then maybe I'd raise more money that way. But they did. We have some videos when they were smaller. They had some
Oh,
pretty thick accents, and
cute.
we miss those small days of like that. It was like such a easier time in our lives
Mm.
in some ways.
Sure. Uh, um, so can you tell us any stories or any ways that, I love that quote about, they're your compass, not your cargo. And along with that, and that they're a part of your ministry. So along with that, can you tell us any stories about how, God has worked through your kids, either through, creating opportunities to meet people to share the gospel because of, things that they're involved in, or maybe it's, literally like God spoke through them, and because of it, the voice of God coming through a child, something more unexpected than, the pastor of the local church, that God has really worked to create opportunities and worked through the fact that you have kids with you on the fields.
We do. I try to be as involved in my kids' life, whether it's drop off or pick up
Mm,
from school, like as much as I can. And
yeah.
that has probably been one of our biggest avenues,
Mm,
is going to the drop off line for school.
hmm.
So just being there and just making
Yeah.
connections with family. So we have so many friends that now, again, you know them from kindergarten
Yeah.
to eighth grade,
Yep.
and you just connect with them every single morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it got harder once we opened up the cafe time wise, but
Mm,
up until last year, we were there, and you stand out in the rain and you say good morning, and then you're on WhatsApp groups,
sure.
and you're like, well, if I want to influence people, then I have to be around people.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I want people to find Jesus, but
Mm-hmm.
I want them to know that Dave Goldschmidt and the Goldschmidt family loves them.
Yeah.
And so that has been probably the best connection, because again,
Mm,
with life, even when church life, like if you go to church once a month, you're never going to connect like the person who
mm,
shows up and who serves all the time.
yeah.
So if you're only showing up to the playground once a month, if you're
Mm-hmm.
involved at the gym once,
Yep.
being there regularly is one of the biggest things
Mm-hmm.
that's going to make an impact with people who don't Jesus, family members, or whatever you can do. You have
Mm-hmm.
to be there consistently,
Mm-hmm.
because then
That's
your
good.
story, because now they know I have a
Yeah.
coffee shop, they know we're the
Mm-hmm.
pastor of a local church,
Mm-hmm.
they know all these things about us, and
Yep.
we have had several families coming to church in the
That's
last
cool.
season. One young teenage boy, our daughters are in class together, the younger daughters,
Mm,
but her teenage son, looking for like an apprenticeship,
okay.
he volunteers at the coffee shop twice a month on Saturdays,
Yeah.
and he loves it. They don't get
Wow.
paid for it, and that's like the
Yeah.
connection that we have. And the family comes to church and regularly, and we love that. And how did that
Yeah.
happen? From going to the playground,
Mm-hmm.
going out and just making time with people. But
Yeah.
but another big thing. So I talked about earlier how like there's a lot of stories behind, like all these great stories. There's like a
Mm,
family that's doing life just
yep.
like a
Yep.
normal family who's doing a
Mm-hmm.
life wherever you are.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, our daughter, and this has really helped us build connections.
Mm,
Our older daughter went through a really big battle with anxiety.
mm,
She had always had anxiety ever since she was about 7, but she always got over it,
mm,
and she was always able to recover.
yeah.
But for some reason, when she was 12, so her
Mm,
hormones, everything was
mm-hmm.
shifting, but it
Sure.
was like we just hit a brick wall, and
Mm,
it was just such a difficult season for her.
mm,
And just like I'm sharing like an open book, and I have her
mm,
permission to talk about these things,
yeah.
even if I didn't, I would. But but she says we can. Um, I share our story with people,
Mm,
because sometimes people think of us as pastors or as missionaries, and they're like, man, you're always smiling, everything's
mm,
good, and
mm-hmm.
because you have a 5-minute window to share,
Right.
like you don't really have time to share like your
Yeah.
deepest, darkest secrets. You want to highlight what you've done in the last
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
years. And so I told our congregation,
Mm,
I would tell people on friends, I would tell like our neighborhood chats that we're in, hey guys, just pray for Lila. And I know
mm,
they're not Christians, but I'll mention these things
yeah.
as opportunities, and the response from other people through it's taken her 2 years, and she's still
Mm,
not fully recovered,
mm,
but I think, there's promise through our pain, right? And
Yeah,
so
that's
God's going to
good.
redeem everything.
Yep.
And so we went and we walked, and we're still walking on this journey with
Mm,
her. But we could see how God used it as an opportunity, because we have
mm,
discovered so many other people
mm.
on those
Yep.
playgrounds, um, whose kids are challenged and
Mm,
suffering and going through really hard struggles.
mm,
And I think it just kind of helped them to see, well, like, if Dave, this pastor and this Christian, and
mm,
who's always smiling, has a great personality, like, if he can make it, we can make it. If he
mm.
can go through it, then yeah, it's not, it's, like, it helped them put, like, hey, we're real people too.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it helped them to find, like, hey, we're okay. We're going to be okay
Mm-hmm.
as well. People asking us for prayer, or us chiming in and saying, hey, we're going to pray for you. So it's
Yeah.
opened up amazing opportunities. So
Yeah.
I hate that it happened,
Right. Of
but
course.
yet God was able to turn it
Mm-hmm.
around for good,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how he is. So
Yeah.
being around people and using the things that your family goes through as
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to be able to connect with
Mm-hmm.
people has been transformative for our family.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. You had mentioned earlier about how I don't know, maybe people wouldn't normally realize this or think about this, but that in Scotland only 2% of people really understand like who Jesus is, really understand that it's more than just like a historical building or, some type of family tradition or whatever, however they would understand it. How is that different? Like, how have you noticed that impacts interactions or things differently than in the United States? Right? Because I'm sure that there are differences between, non-believers in the United States and differences in non-believers in Scotland, just with those, I don't know, those assumptions or levels of understanding. So can you just talk more about that?
So I'm from New Jersey, and
Mm,
so to talk about Northeast, and it is a really hard field to be a pastor. But I tell people that Edinburgh, not all of Scotland, but Edinburgh, so New Jersey is like the Bible Belt
hmm,
compared to Edinburgh.
interesting.
Like, even when I'm here and
Yeah.
the connections and doing stuff, like, you can do a light the night, or you can have a trunk or treat,
Mm,
a harvest party, and I know that the return, you'll have somebody who will show up there.
mm,
But there are things that I've been doing for a decade in Scotland that people love coming out to, over a decade, that'll never show up to church, or have
mm,
not yet.
sure.
Over, like, we've done an Easter egg hunt
Mm.
for over 10 years, and that's a miracle, because it rains 75% of the time in Scotland, and it has never rained on us. Like, and last
Wow.
year we did it. I had, I can show you a photo. There was 400 kids
Whoa.
waiting. Now, when people hear about it, they put it on WhatsApp groups. Schools know about it. They will show up. But I have never had anybody show up to church because of our Easter egg hunt
Huh.
in the 10 years that I've done it. And
Yeah.
I'm strategic.
Yeah.
I have a platform, so
Mm.
I'll share the gospel message.
Yeah.
I'll invite them to church. They'll
Mm-hmm.
all get a bag that has an
Mm.
invitation with a map to where our church is.
Mm.
So it's not like, it's like, oh, did I invite them? They will have it, but nobody, and people love it. At the end of it, it's like, I feel like a rock star. They're like, this is amazing. I can't believe you
Yeah.
guys did this for us for free. They're like, we can't wait till next year. Like, this year's better than. They love it.
Yeah.
But the fruit of getting people to
Mm.
church, where I think in the States,
Yeah.
if I did an Easter egg hunt, and I'm not saying all the time, but I know that there's going to be some
Mm-hmm.
level. Also, the interaction, like, I feel like the interaction, because of that lack of sunshine too, sometimes
Mm.
in Edinburgh, people are a little bit more reserved.
Hmm.
So I'd be walking around the streets, and I would look at somebody, say good morning,
Mm.
and they would literally just turn their head up and not want to say good morning to me.
Hmm.
Um, and different generations
Yeah.
as well. But you really have to, like, dig deep for that
Mm.
relationship,
Yeah.
because, and I get it.
Yeah.
So now I'm an American, and if they know me, they'll know that I'm a Christian. So it's
Mm.
like, well, I don't trust you, and you're an outsider. So, like,
Yeah.
you have to, like, it's not about. Listen, just like Audrey, a miracle can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what we have seen for the majority of people, it's like, well, how do I build the level of trust that they trust
Mm.
what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
Or how
Yep.
do I even build the relationship for them, for me to even speak a voice into their life?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that but I think Americans are a little bit more open at times to,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
like, I'm sitting at the bagel shop a few weeks ago, and like people are like, good morning, like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, not to say that everybody would show up,
Yeah.
but I feel like, man, my return here is just a
Mm,
lot different.
sure.
And I think it's because I think the church, I think the Church of Scotland, which is
Mm,
Presbyterian, I think at some point they started just thinking about themselves. So as they grew, like
mm,
you will find a Church of Scotland building in every neighborhood in the city. So like, like every neighborhood, there's going to be a new one. And at one point they were all full. Some of them were built as overflow buildings, not just
mm.
overflow rooms,
Yeah.
because the main building couldn't hold them, that they
Mm,
needed to fill them.
yeah.
But I think what happens is they stopped outreaching
Hmm.
and saying, hey, let me look out God's house and take care of
Mm,
that. And then as their congregation started to get older, it was like, let me just be insular.
yeah.
And then I think fine. And then 10 years go by, and then their 50-year-olds become 60 and they're still not outreaching. Now they're
Mm,
670 and they're still not outreaching. So now you have a lot of these buildings who are full of older people,
mm,
and they're like, how can we take care? But they stopped outreaching. And
hmm.
tell our church, and people say it different ways, but you take care of God's house, the
Yeah.
world, he'll take care of your house, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so I think they said, hey, how do we take care of our house?
Mm,
Because I think as you get older, listen, I'm 45 now, and like I'm setting my ways, so it is harder to change. But imagine that if you built a building, or
mm,
you gave, you're like, hey, this is my pew, this is
yeah.
my church, I want to do things. Well, that's fine, and I understand that. But at the same time, if you're not reaching, then you're
Mm,
going to have buildings
yep.
full of people that are just so. I think over time, then the church has just become like a place that,
Mm,
like, why do you go? Why would I go to church?
mm,
Like, I'm
mm-hmm.
not a drug addict. I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I have a good family. I've got a good
Mm,
job, and my kids play sports. Why do I want to give up an hour
mm-hmm.
of my Sunday morning to sit in a building of a God that I don't believe in, that I never
Yep.
heard about? Like,
Yep.
what is that? And so it literally has to be a move of the Holy Ghost,
Yeah.
because I think we do a great job. I think we did a great renovation 3 years ago. Our building is probably the most beautiful, like modern sanctuary with old. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We have a great coffee shop,
Mm,
but yet it's still not enough, because
mm,
what's it going to take for those people to know? It
yeah.
has to be a move of the Holy Spirit,
Yep.
which is why we count on people in churches to pray for us,
Yes,
because we
absolutely.
can't do it by ourselves. It
Mm,
has to be people surrounding us, and so
mm,
I think they're just um, you have to build that trust with them to be
yeah.
able to connect with them.
Yeah.
And I think because of their personality, it's a little bit harder to
Mm,
break that shell. But I'm telling
mm,
you, once you do, it does make a difference.
yep.
And then doesn't mean they might come to church yet, but at
Mm-hmm.
least you have the conversation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple people that are not even church people, who are like, hey, can we have a virtual coffee with you guys while you're
Hmm.
here itinerating? Like, they're
Wow.
texting us, we can't
Yeah.
wait. Like, people are like, our neighborhood, they're like, when you come back, we are on the hunt for you to find another apartment in our neighborhood.
Mm,
Like, we're all ready to keep our eyes open. And I'm
yeah.
telling you, these are not our church. Our church family loves us
Yeah.
and they take care of us, but these are our
Your friends.
neighbors
Yep.
who we just have a relationship with, that
Yeah.
love us. And
Yeah.
that has been, and so, and in that we're saying, all right, Lord, help us to season our conversation with salt at
Mm-hmm.
just the right
Mm-hmm.
time. Lord,
Mm-hmm.
open up that door. Let it not be weird. And I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
take a step of faith, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to come on too strong. I
Mm-hmm.
want to navigate that relationship. If the Holy Spirit tells me to now pull the
Yep.
trigger, I
Yep.
will.
Yep.
But until that happens, I want to be just like that, again, salt and light
Mm-hmm.
in that place. Somebody said to me, and it was interesting. He said, he's like, sometimes as Americans, because we many of us, not all of us, we love to be the closer, right? We want to be the one that leads them to Jesus. We
Yep.
want to be the one that baptizes. And sometimes we're not called to be that. And
Mm.
I and I'm learning, hey, maybe I'm just setting it up for somebody else, a
Mm-hmm.
family member who's been praying for them or
Yep.
something.
Yeah.
But
That's
I just
good.
want, when they look at us, hey, Dave Goldschmidt, pastor of a local church,
Mm.
that cares about me, and I know
Mm-hmm.
that he's a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Can you tell us a little bit more about your coffee shop? You said that is a more new thing, but you also just left it. So what does that look like? And I'm assuming that part of the reason behind the coffee shop is to continue to create more opportunities to connect with people, which, sounds like is one of the main focuses of really your ministry, like, for the reasons that you just shared about, needing to kind of earn people's trust and earn, a voice of influence in their life that they're going to allow you to share, and they're actually going to like internalize it so that, it creates those opportunities for, things to happen. So all that to say, tell us more about the coffee shop.
So we opened up the coffee shop last October, and it's in our building. Our building's 115 years old, and it was a mess. Like there was no studs holding up the floor, sagging everywhere. The electricity, it was, and so. But my wife said, if we're going to take on this lower level of this, it's the building is split into two levels. If we're going to take on the lower level, I don't want to just be open twice a week. We need to do something that connects with people.
Yeah.
So we said, let's do a coffee shop. My wife has watched, we don't own our own home, and she has watched HGTV for 25 years. So she's like, I'm going for it. And so this is where kingdom builders and your offerings come into play, because a church our size, which is about 55 to 70 people, we couldn't do it by ourselves.
Sure.
But now we have a high-end coffee shop that charges pennies for, not literally pennies, but they say that it's like a small amount of money, and we do a really good job because we're not dependent on funding that. The renovation is completely paid off of, and it looks beautiful. And so we did that, and we said, all right, let's open this up. And the connections that we've built in the last year have been incredible. Christian families that moved to the neighborhood, we've had several come to church. A girl, Sally, she came to the coffee house, and she was a Christian, but searching for more. And the coffee shop was on her way to work. And we invited her to church. She came to church right before we came back for a year of fundraising. I baptized her in water. So, and we've seen that happen. And then a lot of what we've seen happen is again, this building relationship with people. We had this couple, the guy comes in probably twice a week. He loves our cinnamon buns and our toasties, which is just like a ham and cheese, grilled cheese. It's just great, but they love their toasties there. And so he comes in and twice a week, and we just became friends. And as we were getting ready to leave, his girlfriend baked us like this bag of cookies, right? She's like, oh, we're going to miss you guys. And baked us like chocolate chip cookies. And then he bought me, I love to play Fortnite. And so he got me a Fortnite comic book, and he's like, hey, some light reading on your plane ride.
There we go.
And then we'll talk, hey, what are you doing today? Oh, we're going out for a date. Or, oh, I'm going to be finishing up my sermon on Saturday. So just building that relationship over and over. I was talking to the two sisters that are managing, and I'll tell you about that. But they said, hey, right now we're seeing just tons and tons of regulars coming back. So again, if I didn't say 100 to 200 people we're ministering to on a weekly basis. And so if you are listening to this and you're like, man, I would love to do an internship there, one of the things that we need is interns. If you're thinking 3, 6, 9 months or something like that to help us run a coffee shop, we're busy enough that it's great and it helps us cover our costs. But the truth is we need a manager to help my wife, or even like a person and a half, but we don't have the funds to do that yet. But we're in this really tight, but we need it because for a season, my wife and I, we were doing it every day. So I was pastoring a church, navigating a daughter with anxiety, running a coffee shop, finishing renovations, and baptizing people in water. It was like a crazy season for us. We did it, but we need. I can't be in the coffee shop when we go back. But so we were in a pickle. We're like, okay, what are we going to do? We had missionaries that were with us. They were supposed to be with us for 3 years, but sadly they lasted 3 months, and that really put us in a bind because they were supposed to take on a big portion of that coffee house. And so, but I knew it, and my wife and I will say, right when they told us that they were leaving, and again, it wasn't a great exit. I said, it stinks right now, but I know God has a better plan, and the plan that has that is absolutely incredible. There's 2 missionaries, fully appointed missionaries. They're the first twins that were sent out by the Assemblies of God. So they're from the Wyoming district, and so they've been with me for 10 years, and so they were actually home itinerating to come back to run the coffee shop, but for different reasons, they hadn't finished raising their budget yet. So we reached out and we said, listen, if we pay for your rent, so I'm raising our budget and I'm raising budget to like keep them afloat, but it's worth it because they're like both ordained. They're the best. And I love them. We said, would you guys consider coming back early? And so the national office approved it. So I have two sisters who preach at the church, help out with
Wow.
worship at the church,
Yeah.
teach small group. Now they're exhausted. I can see the ring camera sometimes, and like on a busy day, they're like sweating. It's like it's like they're like they're like when we get back home to the States, we're never going to make another toasty for another 5 years because it's like a lot. They're making so many sandwiches. Especially through the summertime, but they saved us big time.
Mm,
Them saying leaving early. They're not fully funded,
mm,
but they said, "Hey, we love you guys. This is what we wanted to do.
yeah.
But thank you for helping us out." But that's been a blessing
Mm,
for us. And then one of the issues too in Scotland is like, well, who's going to pastor your church?
mm-hmm.
And so this couple was supposed to help us with some of that as well. And when it fell through, I'm like, Lord, what do I do? And
Yeah.
we just don't have a big slew of like pastors like waiting in the
Mm-hmm.
pipeline.
Yeah.
So there was a pastor that was with us. He's retired. He was with us the first 6 years.
Mm,
He moved away, but we asked him to come back. He's
mm.
80 years old
Wow.
and he is awesome. Him and
Yeah.
his wife, they are just super gems. He's still a fireball of a preacher. He does a great job. He's good at pastoring our
Mm.
people. He doesn't want it when I come back. He like, we'll do updates and I'll be in front of like palm trees in Florida. And he's like, are you sure you're coming back, Dave? Please. I need to be, please. He's like, I said, no, we're coming back. We're coming back. But and then we have another missionary couple that just helped us out for 6 months, and they're helping us just do more minor
Mm,
renovations, preaching, teaching, and just helping out to the cafe. So
yeah.
it went from last December,
Mm,
we're like, what are we going to do? To
yeah.
now we have a 6 strong team
Mm,
of like that's really helping us. And so
yeah.
one of our biggest prayers is like, Lord, send missionaries. We need that, but also
Mm,
Lord, help us to raise up people in the church. And we're
mm-hmm.
trying, but it's just been our
Mm,
church is very transient.
mm.
We have people an average of 18 months. So when you're trying to
Okay.
build leadership
Yeah.
and on 18 months,
Yeah.
it has been one of our biggest
Mm,
challenges up to date of how do you do that? And
mm-hmm.
people like, I think even since this beginning of this year, we've lost about 10 families.
Mm,
My wife and I, we don't do it often, but sometimes we'll count. And we're like, if these people were still here,
yeah.
and people leave that don't want to leave.
Hmm.
One guy, he turned down 4 promotions in his job because he's like, I'm called to be with you.
Wow.
And it's crazy. When we were moving into the first phase of our renovation,
Mm,
half the people that gave towards that renovation never saw the end of it because they left, like their visas got pulled. It was like, Lord,
mm.
what are you doing to us? It's been crazy.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, but the coffee shop has been just such an incredible
Yeah.
way for us to just that consistent
Mm-hmm.
relationship which
Yeah.
people need. We had a family come in of 10 and they said they're celebrating the daughter's third birthday.
Mm,
And they're like, we love you guys so much. It's cousins actually with this guy who gave me the Fortnite book, and they came
nice.
out and I'm like, listen, this is the biggest table we've ever done. They're like, we could care less. This is awesome. And they just had
Oh.
such a great time celebrating our coffee shop. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been real. It's a lot of work, but it's
Mm,
really beneficial for us.
yeah. Wow. Well, time for one more question. So, you've kind of alluded to some different things, and so maybe your answer is going to be something you've already shared, but you're itinerating right now. You're going back, and I don't remember. Did you say when you're going back?
It's next June.
Next June. Okay, so you're going back next June. You're talking about this new coffee shop. Obviously, you have your church. But what is kind of the biggest thing that gets you excited about going back? What is the one thing that you're like, man, I can't wait to get back and do this, or I know that God has a plan for this when we get back. What is that thing?
So the last time we itinerated was 2018. And when we were coming back, we had no building, maybe about 25 people. But we shared, Lord, we're believing for a building when we get back to Scotland. That was in
Yeah,
2019.
yeah.
I have a picture of our last service. It was our
Mm,
goodbye service. There was 90 people in the congregation.
yeah.
We had a building and we had a coffee shop, and that happened in
Mm,
6 years. We did a 6-year term.
wow.
So one of the things I'm most excited about is like when we're going back, the foundation that we have is the strongest that it's ever been.
Mm,
So, itineration is exhausting,
yeah.
but it's also a time to rest and regroup. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like, okay, um, we can't wait to get back because
Mm-hmm.
we're going back and not like, oh, what's going to happen next. We're like, wow, we can't wait to see
Yeah.
what's going to happen
Yeah.
because we know what you did last time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my biggest prayers, like I'm praying for a worship leader and an
Mm-hmm.
administrative pastor. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we're not financially stable yet for that, but I'm
Yeah.
like, Lord, I know that it's going to, I don't know who
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
or where it's going to come from,
Yep.
but in my heart, I'm like, I know it's going to happen.
Yep.
Like we want to finish more construction. I'm like, I don't know where we're going to get the money, but I know it's going to like,
Yeah.
so I guess there's a lot of small things,
Yeah.
but the
Sure.
biggest thing is like going back, knowing that the church foundation is
Mm.
strong
That's good.
and that we're going back to like the healthiest we've ever been,
Yeah.
and big prayers. And so like my friends asked me the same question. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
Dave, we know you're not done. I'm like, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
We want to buy a house,
Mm.
that I can host teams and interns. So
Yeah.
even like if colleges are saying like, if,
Mm-hmm.
North Central is like, hey, we want to send somebody across to do a 6-month
Mm-hmm.
time abroad where they can come in, live,
Yep.
in the house, but that's like $1 million project. So all these things are in my brain
Yep.
and I'm like, all right, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm almost just speaking them like it
Mm-hmm.
happened last time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
what else can I speak out
Yeah.
in faith
Yep.
to see what's going to happen this time,
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's that. Yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah. Wow. Well, neither can I, and neither can we. And just thank you for not only spending this time with us, so that we can get to know you a little bit better and hear about everything that's going on in Scotland and in your family and your ministry, but also just the opportunity to partner with you guys, and to be able to, we know because of our partnership that that your stories that we are going to hear do not end here. We're connected. We get to hear your updates. We will find out the next chapter of this story, as well. And so just thank you so much for the opportunity to partner with you guys and to be able to support you in the work that God is doing in Scotland.
Absolutely love it. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah.